Welcome back to the Full Court Frequency podcast. I'm your host, Connor Hollenbeck, and today we've got a really special one on, a guy whose journey is all about resilience, patience, and staying the course when things don't go your way. One of my good friends, Carson Yale, is joining us, a Minot native, and played for Minot State this year. He is currently in the transfer portal, so that's perfect for this podcast, talking about NIL recruiting. Carson's story is different than most. Coming out of Delax Burlington, he was a standout, averaging 20 points, 11 rebounds, and leading his team to their first state tournament appearance in 30 years and earning multiple All-State and All-Region honors. But when he got to Minot State, things didn't go as planned. He dealt with serious femur issues, injuries, that forced him to redshirt not once but twice, going through long rehab process and questioning if he'd ever play again. Now we fast forward to this past year for the Beavers. He started a lot of games, making highlight plays, bringing energy every night for the Beavers. This is one of those stories a lot of athletes can relate to. I look forward to talking with Carson. He's going to have a lot of good input for us. Carson, thanks for joining us today on the Full Court Frequency podcast.
I appreciate it, my good friend. I'm excited.
Yeah, I've been waiting for this episode. I've had a lot of coaches on, only one player. I know I wanted to have you on just because your path is pretty unique as far as what college basketball is, and now you're in the transfer portal and you're dealing with the wild, wild west of college basketball today. But before we get to that, I do want to ask you if we can turn back the time a little bit, and I want to ask you, when you got to Minot State as a true freshman and you hurt your femur again after you did in high school with football, what was kind of your thought process? Because I know it can't be easy being a freshman, let alone having a season-ending injury right away.
Yeah, obviously, you come in every freshman has big hopes and dreams when they start their college basketball journey. Don't really know what it entails of yet, but that's kind of the mindset going into it. Obviously, not the ideal situation getting hurt. Went through a pretty long process there. I believe it was about November-ish. Kind of realized something was off again, and had to go get looked at by some experienced doctors. And then, I kind of had to play a waiting game there with my injury. I had to wait about 6 or 7 months for a donor allograft, I believe they call it, from a cadaver actually. So had to play a long waiting process there, and then eventually I got to surgery time, and then I was looking at 10, 11 months, to get back to being fully healthy and being able to go. I think a lot of the things that kept me motivated was, being on a team with a good group of guys, including yourself, and a few others that really helped me keep my head on straight and keep looking forward to the next day. Even though at that time, obviously, it wasn't the easiest thing, but looking back at it, I think I can take a lot from my experience, and I think I grew a lot during the entire time.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I thought you handled the situation perfect. Like, I couldn't imagine 15 months sitting out, like having to trust the process. It couldn't be easy. Obviously, you're at Minot State now, currently in the transfer portal, but a lot of this show, I like to talk about recruiting. I want to give good insight on how people, recruit, what their experiences is recruiting or being recruited. What was it like? Why did Minot State stick out in their recruitment process compared to other schools in the area and in the country?
Yeah, so my situation is obviously just a little bit different. I dealt with injury my junior year of basketball, so I didn't play my junior season. I think that limited a lot of my options. Definitely had a lot of options within the Northern Sun Conference that Minot State is in, and kind of ultimately, being from around town, growing up playing at the games. Both my cousins actually played at Minot State, Matt and Danielle, while I was growing up. Got to spend a lot of time at the games, and then looked up, to a lot of guys around town like the Ben Bulls and the Jackson Gunvilles that eventually found success here at Minot State. And I think that was a good indicator that, that could be a reality for me as well. I think ultimately, all those things considered, and having family around, good support from the community, people being excited about the opportunity that I had here, ultimately is kind of the main reasons why I chose Minot State.
Sure. Yeah, and we played under the same head coach while you were hurt. Obviously, you had a new coach this year. I always thought during the recruiting process, one of the main reasons that I went to Minot State was because our coach Matt Merkin and the assistants at the time did such a good job creating a relationship with me through the recruiting process. It didn't seem fake. It seemed like almost if I didn't commit to Minot State, they still would have valued the relationship they had with me as far as communicating and texting. Did you feel the same type of way when you're getting recruited there?
For sure. And I think, it goes to show a lot, even kind of in the current situation that I'm at. I can always shoot a phone call to anybody that was kind of, on the staff while we were both here. I still have good relationships with them today. So I think that those things definitely hold true. And I would say that I had a similar experience as you did, getting recruited by them.
For sure. So we fast forward, you get through your injury process, that 15-month period. You're getting ready during the summer to play your first year, but then you finally get on the court for your first game. What did it feel like finally stepping on the court for your debut? What were your nerves like? I can't imagine after not playing an actual game until, since high school. How were you feeling the second you stepped on the court? What were your emotions?
Yeah, definitely a lot of emotions. Kind of was able to sit back and definitely take a look at how much time and effort it took to get here, get to that point. I was definitely overcome with a ton of emotions, but also in the understanding of that I belonged in that situation, that I, got up and grinded every day to get to that situation. So a lot of gratitude and a lot of emotion in that time. Being able to come back from my first game, and I believe it was about 1,000 days, and be able to step into the jump circle and tip the ball off. Was a big thing for me. Obviously, being a starter, I started all of our games this year, so that was really big. Got to play with a lot of good friends of mine with our team this year, and kind of a new group. That was definitely an interesting dynamic, something that I'd never totally experienced before. But I'd say overall it was good, and definitely grateful for the opportunities I had within this year. But yeah, definitely an emotional, kind of full of gratitude time stepping onto the court again after such a long time being gone.
Yeah. Was there ever a point like in the season where you finally felt like I'm back, or was it right away? Did it feel like, yeah, I'm ready to go, I feel normal, or did it take a couple games, a little bit of a learning curve? Because the reality of it is this is your first year playing college basketball at a Division II level and a
Mhm.
conference that's one of the best in the country. How long would you say it took you to finally get your feet wet and get going?
Yeah, I would say it was, it definitely took, a few games for sure. I would say once we were about maybe 5 or 6 deep within the season, we played our first conference matchup against UMary. I feel like I really caught my stride there. And then the next conference weekend that we had, we went down to Northern State and had a pretty demanding win. I feel like those two games really settled me back into the role of being an impactful basketball player again, and kind of seeing myself and visualizing some of those situations before they happened. I definitely think it took a couple games to get my feet wet, playing against grown men. As you know, this conference, the Northern Sun's no joke, and I think it definitely took me a few games to get used to it, but once I did, I felt super comfortable out there.
Sure. Nope, that's awesome to hear. I do want to fast forward now to the present day. You are in the transfer portal. That's everyone wants to talk about right now is transfer portal and NIL. I don't want you to bring up any specific numbers or schools. Just let me know kind of where you at right now. What's kind of your emotions now that you're in the transfer portal, and how's it treating you?
Yeah, I would say definitely kind of a whirlwind. Being a guy like me in a very unique situation right now. I'm a 21-year-old kid, but I still got should have 3 years left to play. So I think that's very attractive to a lot of coaches. It's been an interesting process just since it's so new. Not a million options out there, for me to give a phone call to, and ask about situations for how it went for other guys. So that's been interesting. But yeah, just kind of the influx of through getting on X or Twitter and posting some things, having a phone number out there. Definitely had a big plethora of coaches reaching out from all levels. I would say through my process, it's been super easy to tell who has seriously done their research on me. I think you
Sure.
can weed a lot of those things out. But yeah, it's been interesting. It's been fun. It's been enjoyable, I would say for sure. I think it's something that was earned, not given. Anybody that gets to be in this position. So yeah, definitely just taking it day by day. I feel like I'm getting closer to a decision for sure. But when talking about all these things, talking about some of the NIL and some of those things like that, uh, you get to hear numbers and some things from other guys that you may know or have relationships with. And it's definitely very shocking because it's something that, once again, it's so new to people. Um, and you hear some of these numbers and, being a young kid, growing up, not knowing that anybody made money playing basketball and now to be, possibly in that situation or have that opportunity, I think is a pretty cool thing. But there definitely needs to, you know, I think there should be some regulation on it at some point. Whether it's a salary cap kind of look or whatever that may be, I think that's important as well.
Yeah. No, I look forward to the next couple minutes really getting into that. But before we do, you know, I asked this to my brother, Caleb. He was on the podcast. He was at Marshall University. He's now transferring. He's in the transfer portal and committed to Tennessee Tech. I asked him, what are you looking for in your next opportunity? Is it NIL? Is it fit? Do you want to win? Obviously you do, but like where do you rank those things? Like is it role? Is it location? Where are you kind of what are you looking for in your next move here in the transfer portal?
Yeah, I would definitely say, all of those things are definitely big, big kind of things I have to circle, when making my decision to go somewhere. I would say a huge thing for me is the fit within, the guys on the team. I think definitely learned over my past few years that that's a very big part of things. I think finding a program that has proven success is also important because one team could have a down year or one team could maybe have an up year that's kind of uncharacteristic for them, and it may not always be the best sample size. But I think looking at long-term success of a program, the way that I think something that gets overlooked a lot is how much the administration, how much the town really rallies behind a team because I think, that plays a big factor into playing in front of a rowdy crowd and things like that. Um, Not too worried about location right now in my process. After, playing in my hometown for a few years, I think I'm ready to take that jump. Kind of get out somewhere else new and kind of see what that has to offer. Obviously, when talking about the NIL side of things, there's been some attractive offers that come across, but at the same time, I'm kind of looking at it in the way of, if I do things the right way, then that money or whatever will find me at some point within my career. I think just where I'm at now, I'm not prioritizing a ton, but if the right, opportunity comes about, I think I would definitely jump on it.
Yeah. Especially at the level me and you are at, I kind of had the perspective of like you can't put a price tag on experience.
Yep.
At the end of the day, we're both going to get jobs and we're going to hopefully make a lot of money one day. And you can always get a job and make money. You can't always go back and play college basketball. So that's kind of when my brother would ask me for advice in the transfer portal. That's what I would kind of tell him to base his decision off. I like that you said like the money will come if you do the right things. That's
Yep.
usually how it works. And love to hear that's kind of the perspective you have around this, and that should carry you a long way in the transfer portal as far as looking for your next spot. What do people not understand about the transfer portal? What's one misconception that the outside person looking in doesn't know?
Yeah, I would say one thing that's definitely even kind of come across me and, within talking to a couple people, as you can see, on social media and things, people posting these offers. Sometimes I think that there's little legitimacy held to some of these things. I've had plenty of conversations with coaches on the phone, wondering when I can get down on a visit, within the next 3 days or whatever that entails, and not necessarily saying the words, we have offered you a scholarship, kind of in that direct wording, but definitely leading towards that. I see how that could definitely be taken maybe in an odd way by some people if they're not, educated on the topic. But that's definitely something that, has come across as a little bit of a shock to me, having some of these conversations, and they're very serious conversations, but it definitely becomes hard to really know how much legitimacy is behind every single one of them. I think that can get skewed sometimes, if it's not the right person, and when talking in word of mouth with people, if, something gets brought up like, oh yeah, I've been talking to these people, and just not really knowing how legit that is, I would definitely say that's like a big question mark in the transfer portal right now.
Yeah. I mean, for the listener, I think like to put it in simplest terms, what you're saying is like you'll see a lot these days like on Twitter, you'll see like players will talk to certain coaches and they'll just have a simple conversation and then they'll run to Twitter and post, "Hey, I am blessed with an opportunity or, an offer to go to this school." And the outside person looks at that and they're like, "How did he's already offered him when that's not even close to the case?" Like people from the outside looking in will look at an offer and just assume like, "Oh yeah, like he must truly have a full ride scholarship to that institution." Is that kind of what you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, for sure. That's what I was getting towards. And I think it just becomes an interesting landscape because a lot of this is being dealt with, the 18 to 20-year-old, 22-year-old kids. And I think it can be definitely there can definitely be a misconception with some of those things, whether it's through social media, word of mouth, whatever it is. And then I feel it might be easy as an athlete to convince yourself of things that might not be super concrete.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's super common nowadays. Um, just one last question here about NIL. I know you said that, it will come to you if you do the right stuff and like you just value the right things. How much does NIL actually play a role, like as far as making a decision? Are you even like if it were you had two offers and they were kind of similar and one had more money, is it obvious to pick the place with more money?
Yeah, I think that's definitely like a loaded question. Kind of in my situation, there's been options that I think would come with more financial gain that I definitely have valued somewhat less than maybe the role or the environment, the coaching, the winning culture there, just because, those are things that I value. So I would say it's definitely like a kind of per basis topic. Um, if one school, I'm not just simply going to the school that offers the biggest dollar amount. That's not, kind of how I'm looking at it. I would say it definitely plays a role, but it's not the top thing for me. I think if I had two schools that were very, very similar in all the other things I mentioned, and another school is, double the dollar amount, I think then you get into that conversation.
Sure. Um, this is called the Real Talk segment. I'm just going to ask you one here. Do you feel like college basketball is becoming more of a business than a sport?
I would say so. After going throughout, this process, I've really got a good look at, um, you know, and just staying in the know, with things. It definitely has become a little bit of a bidding war, right now, but at the same time, I don't know as it's always the worst thing. I think it, creates some opportunities for guys that maybe wouldn't have had them in certain situations, and it also takes opportunities away from others, which is another conversation. But yeah. I would definitely say it's heading towards that way. I'm not sure about, the regulations and things that may come in the near future. But I would think that there has to be at some point.
Okay. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I guess I don't have too much of a take on it. I just think it's always been a business. Like where when you get to the college level, and I was talking about this with Cole Edwards on the last podcast because he was a college coach and it was like, yeah, the difference between high school and college is college, like your coach, the administration, it's their livelihood now.
Hmm.
They're not too concerned with, I shouldn't say almost being ethical, but they need to do what's best for them and their family, and that's respectable. but also you start to lose the integrity of the game that we love. So,
Yeah,
no,
I would agree for sure. I think, just as you said, I think that was the best way to put it. I think it's always been a business, but I think it becomes definitely a bigger conversation topic, lately when you start getting dollar amounts involved. Like as you said, every coach, their job is to win basketball games. Their job is to have a winning culture, put a couple fans in the seats and get people excited about things. So I think, however that they can do that while creating a good environment, having the right type of guys in there. I think every coach is looking for those things. So yeah, I would agree with that.
for sure. Okay, last segment. This is a fun, quick hit segment. I just want you to answer these couple questions as fast as you can. Favorite pregame meal?
Ziggy's jerk chicken pasta.
Okay. Favorite player of all time?
LeBron James.
One word to describe your game.
Vertical.
Okay. Tough one to phrase here. Uh, your next spot you're playing at, big gym, not a lot of fans, smaller gym, not as nice of a facility, packed atmosphere.
I'll go packed atmosphere all day. You can't beat the energy of a gym.
Okay. Um, Another one word one here. One word to describe your journey.
Roadblock.
Best moment of your career so far.
I would say catching a lob in the dome when there was a packed house.
Love it. Okay. Carson, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. Your busy day. I know your phone's probably ringing off the hook with coaches in the transfer portal, but I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this. And best of luck in the transfer portal. I know I'm always going to be talking to you and texting you for updates, but look forward to see you committing in the next couple weeks and just tuning into the rest of your journey. Hopefully we'll have you on another time.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thanks.